So do you ever wish you could just have a quick, fast, and easy project, something that you could actually finish in a couple hours and have some fun learning your machine at the same time? Well, embroidered buttons are surprisingly addictive and fun to make. And even if you don't want to make the buttons that are embroidered, we'll learn some fun things on the machine anyway. So join me. I'm Cathy. This is Sewing Tech Talk. Let's have some fun with some little fun stuff. So we have a giveaway for today's video. It's a great pack of embroidery thread. Every time you like, share, or comment, you're entered for a chance to win. And check back in a couple days, see if you win, because you got to claim your prize to get it. So this is a fun, quick little project. You ever just want one of those? You don't want to just like dig in and have this massive project. You like to finish something that's you started just maybe an hour or two. So embroidered buttons are really fun. And I use covered buttons, but there's other options that you can use. Now I've used these for, I started playing with them and it's kind of actually hard to stop. They're surprisingly addictive. You can do some fun stuff with them, some crafty kind of stuff with them. In your handout, I have instructions to make a cute little pin. So here's the cute little pin, and I made this because I always use my Wonder Clips, right, when I sew, and I needed something to have them close at hand. I even give you the instructions to make a tiny little pin cushion, and I use that to keep a hand sewing needle on if I need that when I'm sewing. So it's a fun little pin, so the instructions are for that. We're going to make some buttons that are covered with little embroidered letters on them today, and so like I said, the instructions are in your handout. Go to the description. It's usually highlighted in blue. The handout for this video and all my other videos is there too. So it's a fun little project to play with. So now, what could you use these buttons for besides the little pin? Well, they're a great wardrobe refresher, right? So have you ever wanted to like shop in your closet? Sometimes you might have a jacket or a blouse or something like that, and you've been wearing it for a while, but maybe it just needs a little extra something. So, or I have this. I sent this as one of my favorite jackets, and I sent it to the cleaners, and it came back, and there's a little tiny little spot on it. There's a little tiny hole. So why couldn't I make buttons to go over the front of it, right? I could just put regular buttons on there, but wouldn't it take that jacket to the next level to maybe have some embroidered buttons on there? Maybe I can use them to coordinate with another part of my my wardrobe, right? Here's another little jacket, and it's fun. I've worn it quite a bit, but why couldn't I make some buttons that are just, that bring in these colors there and add a little bit of flair to this jacket? So let's talk about the supplies that we can use just to make this fun, quick, and easy project. So covered buttons. You might even have some in your sewing stash, right? So covered buttons come in every different size, from teeny tiny, well not super teeny, but pretty small, all the way to gigantor. You can even get some that have this little fancy ring around the outside of them. Don't have covered buttons? Don't want to go to the store? Shop in the garage or the home improvement store. Here's a washer. Now this washer, it's kind of heavy. You might not want to make a button out of it, but they also make these nylon washers, and you can cover these with fabric as well. So look around. You might have a button form or a covered button that's just waiting for some embroidery. So let's talk a little bit about the supplies that I'm going to use. Now I'm going to be making some very small letters, even smaller than this SEW here. I'm going to go on the Baby Lock Vesta. I'm going to explore really teeny tiny letters because I want to fit them on the front of my button, right? So for that, I'm going to use some kind of thin thread. You can get embroidery thread that's thinner than the standard 40 weight embroidery thread. So here's a standard weight 40 weight embroidery thread here. And you can get thread up to small, as thin as an 80 weight. And when you're doing teeny tiny letters, well then that just gives you that extra little you can see the letter a little bit better in embroidery. The letters aren't so clunky when you embroider them out because thread has volume, and we're doing something small. We want maybe a thinner thread. I'm also going to be using a black thin thread on the top to make my embroidered little words. And when I do that, I usually put in a black embroidery bobbin as well. Because a black embroidery bobbin, if there's any chance that that bobbin thread's going to come up, it's not going to show. So basically, I'm going to have my covered button. I'm going to use my thin thread. I'm going to cover these buttons here. And one thing else I have to do. I have to measure my button, don't I? So let me measure my button and show you basically how you're going to do this. So here's the button that I'm going to use, and this is actually a fun nylon button. And I am going to do some small lettering on the front of it. I thought I would have 3 buttons, so I thought I would do Kiss the Cook, and that would be fun on, like, say, a kitchen towel or something like that. I could even put it on my apron if I wanted to. But I need to fit my embroidery on the inside of that button. So I'm going to take my little measuring device and I'm going to measure my button, and I see that it is not quite, and it's maybe 7/8 of an inch. Now when you get a covered button in like a package or a kit, what they're going to do is they're going to have on the back of it, they're going to have a little pattern for how big you need to cut out the fabric circle to cover this button with. So this button, I think, is going to be, if I remember correctly, I think this is basically about a size 30. So I'm going to need to have enough space between my words to accommodate to cut out that circle. Does that make sense? So let me measure this 30. And that 30 is maybe about 1.5 inches. I can go a little bit bigger, but I want to make sure that my words are far enough apart that I can cut out my little circle. Hopefully that makes sense. Okay, so I've measured my button, 7/8 of an inch. I need to cut out about 1.5 inch circle. I need really little letters, so I threaded up my machine with some lightweight thread. Let's put this bobbin in. And I think it's time to go to the screen of the machine and let's put in some words and let's find some small words on the Baby Lock Vesta. Now I can do some small embroideries, and I'm going to do that on a button in a minute. But let's start with some little words. I think that would be kind of fun, wouldn't it? Make little words on your buttons that could go down the front. Hey, this shirt I'm wearing, my little Hawaiian girl shirt, well, what if I had buttons that said aloha, aloha, aloha? Wouldn't that be fun? It'd be quite a wardrobe refresher. It's a conversation piece. So now, I'm going to put the bobbin into the machine in a little bit, but let's go to the screen of the machine and let me show you how I'm going to bring in this really tiny text. So on the Baby Lock Vesta, the text is under this tab right here. These are the super large letters, and actually that's where I'm going to go to get my little flower in a little bit. But I'm going to touch this, and it's going to show me the different styles of lettering that comes on the Baby Lock Vesta. So I have exclusive script. I am going to be using this basic font right here, but there are other fonts as well, even Japanese if you really want it. But I'm going to use this very first font right here. It's just pretty basic. Now I'm going to enter in Kiss the Cook, and I'm going to have Kiss on one button, the on another, and Cook on another. So I think I want it kind of fun looking, so I think I'm going to go with all lowercase. So I'm going to go over here to find the K for kiss, right? So there's my K in a lowercase. Now, each font is available in large, medium, and small on the machine. And you can adjust the size also, right? But I know I don't want a big letter, because if I look here, that letter is over 1 inch and tall and about 1 inch wide. And one letter is going to fill my whole button. So let's go to medium. That's a little bit smaller. Let's try small. Oh my gosh, that looks like it's just about right. Now I'm going to add my ISS, and let's see if it fits on my button. ISS. Now, There's my kiss, there's my word right up in there. And right over here, it shows me that that whole word is no wider than 0.8, which is a little bit bigger than my, well, that's right about my 7/8, isn't it? So I think that word's going to work. So let's take that and put it into the machine, and then we'll add the cook and the same hooping, right? Okay, so I'm going to hit set. Now, there's my little teeny tiny word. You can't really see it because it's so small. I could blow it up so I could see it. But I want to show you kind of a cool trick, because when you want to place something, you have precise controls on the machine. So I'm going to go to move, and there's my little move screen. But there's something that you may have not have looked at before. Right up here, it has 0, 0, 0 and 0, 0, 0, left and right. Now what these are is the placement of the center of the design within the embroidery hoop. So if I want to move this up and to the left, I can go left, and notice it's showing me the distance that I've gone. I think I'm going to go about 1 inch over, and that should be just about right. And the numbers here are going to show me exactly how far I've gone. Now, why is this a cool trick? Well, say you were going to do an embroidery and you had 4 items that are going to be in the corners of your embroidery, and you wanted to precisely place them so that they all matched. Using this feature, you could literally say, I'm going over 1 inch and up 1 inch, and then this one I'm going over and up. And you could precisely place those 4 corners exactly to know that they're not just off a little bit, they're perfectly placed. I've gone over 1 inch, now let me go up 1 inch. See, I know exactly that I've gone up and over exactly 1 inch. Pretty cool, right? Okay, now let me bring in the cook. I'm going to add lettering. There's my lettering. I want the. There's my T. I've got to make sure I tell it small. H-E, there's my the, and when I hit set, that looks like it's going to fit, right? If I wanted to check the size of it, I could always come in under the size key, and that's going to tell me that that is maybe, that's 0.28 inches, a little bit over 1/4 inch tall, and not quite, a little bit over 1/2 inch wide. Is that going to fit on my button? Well, sure. So I'm going to say, okay. Now, you know the drill. I want to move this over exactly where I want it to be, right? So when I go move, this time I'm going to go that way, and I can go exactly 1 inch, or exactly how far I want to go. And now I'm going to go up 1 inch. Perfectly precisely placed. Now if you see on the screen, I have them exactly opposite each other, and they're exactly up from the center a certain exact distance. Now it doesn't matter for these because I'm going to cut them apart, but it might matter for an embroidery that you're going to be doing. So keep that in mind. You do have precise placement. Now we just need cook, right? So that's going to be quick. Let's go add letters. Here we go. C, make it small. O, okay, set. Now, this one, I can just have to move it down. I really don't care how far I go because I can see I got plenty of distance, right? So now when I say okay, if I want to see this closer, I just touch this, and I can see I have just right, kiss the cook. Always do this because you don't have spell check on the machine. Now, I'm going to put in that dark bobbin. This is a black pre-wound bobbin. Because remember, I'm using a smaller thread, and I'm doing really tiny letters. And I'm actually going to be using a 4x4 frame. Now this frame is not a frame that comes with a Baby Lock Vesta. Why is an extra frame kind of nice? Well, you don't have to have one. I could have done this in the 5x7 frame. In fact, I could have fit more buttons in there. But sometimes if you do have a smaller hoop, if you're doing a smaller project, you don't have to use so much stabilizer or fabric to fit in the hoop. Imagine I had a 5x7 hoop and I was just going to do a couple letters. Well, that would take a lot more fabric that I'm using now. So I'm going to use my 4x4 hoop. It's just an extra. I could have used the 5x7. Okay, so I have my little letters. I have them all set in. I've threaded the machine with a thinner thread. I'm going to lower the presser foot and I'm going to stitch this out, and then when we come back, we'll do a little bit more fancy embroidery, and I'm going to show you another trick on the machine to get it exactly where you want it to be. I'll see you soon. So I embroidered my 3 little words. I want to show you just this is cute as a button, okay? So I did the cook already. Doesn't that turn out cute? I told you these were addictive. So this finished up, and I just want to show you how this goes together really, really fast. So on the back of the card of the covered buttons, there's a little chart, right? And you can cut that out. In fact, when I made my little pin, here's the little pin. Each one of these is just a letter on a smaller button. The whole thing, talk about being conservative with materials, is I use that cutout pattern and just glue it back to the back of it. I think that's kind of fun. So anyway, that's what that is. And now the OLFA pin, you have to find your own little charm to put on there. But you can find any kind of little sewing charms you can and put on this. It's really just a fun pin to make. Once again, the instructions are in your handout. So when I finish this, you take your pattern and you cut it out to the size using paper scissors, of course. And then I usually just lay it on top of the word and then trace around it because you can't see through this, right? So I want to make sure that my circle is all the way around even and my kiss is going to be in the center. And then basically, well, let's make sure. I know it's going to fit, but see how it just fits exactly on my button. That's what comes when you plan ahead. So we'll cut out we'll cut out the, and then we'll just make a little covered button. You don't have to be precise. Now a covered button, all this fabric goes to the back, and there is a little cover on the back that covers over this raw edge. If you are using the washer like I talked about, right, what you would do is, let me give you a visual. What you would do is you would cut this just a little bit bigger of a circle, and then you would take a hand sewing needle, turn this edge under, and then do a big running stitch around the back, right? And you kind of like you're making a yo-yo. And so after that, you would take the button form, the little washer, put it in the back, and then this would pull it back. See why you needed just a little bit longer to cover that? Now, could you cover a regular button? Yes, you could, but the washer gives you this empty space in the center for all that gathered fabric to come into. If you were to go around a regular button, there'd be too much bulk back in here. So you could cover a regular button if it was going to be sewn permanently onto something, but to use a button as a button, you probably either need a washer, but the absolute best is the covered button. So how do we do this? So sometimes the covered buttons will come with like a little helper for you to get it in there, and you stick it in like that. Now you can do this without the helper. You get it in so it's kind of mostly centered, right? Then you take your little button guy and you kind of push it in, and sometimes you can see through, which is kind of neat, and I can see that my "the" is just a little bit off. I can pull it. And you push these little parts in. Now this is the really complicated part. Are you ready? You take the back, you make sure all these little folds are in, you take this and you just press it down. Voila! And then you pop it out and you have a the. Now, if you get it a little bit wrong, if you didn't press it down too hard, you can still pop that out and kind of give it a little fix. If you have a covered button that's been covered before, can you take the other part out? Yeah, you can. Just be a little bit careful. I don't want you to cut yourself getting that other part out. So, pretty fun, right? Okay, so now let's make something that's just a little bit fancier. So here's a button I've done. It's a little bit larger button, and these are built-in designs in the Baby Lock Vesta. There's some small designs in there that are built in, right? So this is slightly different. It's a metal covered button, and these designs are in there. They're under holidays, I think. But you can find other designs in there. So we're going to go to the machine, and I'm going to show you another place where embroidery designs are, and we're going to go to the screen. And now I'm going to show you also that you can make a circle, and that circle will help you place a bunch of these in the hoop. So say if I'm using a larger hoop, right? Maybe I'm making the buttons for my Aloha shirt. I'm making more than 3 or 4. I'm going to use a bigger hoop, right? Well, what happens is you can use that move key, but then the math gets a little bit complicated. So wouldn't it be nice if we knew how big that circle was that we had to have to make sure we have our buttons cut out? Let me show you how I come up with that. So now I'm going to use the very same size button, and we measured that. So if you remember, this circle needs to be about, I'd say a little bit more, maybe about 1 3/4 inches. So let's leave this part. Let's go back to the basic embroidery screen. Now, I'm going to use a different feature of the machine called the frames. The frames are right here. So I'm going to touch the frames, and you have different shapes in the frames. So I'm going to need a circle, right? So here's my circle. And you have different fancy stitching that can go around each one of these frames. I just want to use it to kind of measure how big my button needs to be. So I'm going to go and pick the plain circle. And once I do, I have the option to set that into the machine. Now, I'm going to make this circle the size I need to cut out my fabric. So when I hit set, I'm going to come back into size, and this is a little bit over 2.5 and a little bit over by 2.5. What size did I want? I wanted about a 1 3/4 inches, right? So I'm going to reduce it all the way around, and oops, a little bit too far. I'm going to go to about 1 3/4 inches. If it's a little bit bigger, that's fine. And I'm going to say, okay. Now, that's the size circle I need to cut out to make my covered button. And I'm going to put my embroidery design in it. Now, what's the cool thing? Well, I have this little circle, and I can put these all in my hoop, and I know just how far I need to place my embroideries apart. So I can take this circle, I can move it up here if I'm using a larger hoop. Obviously, I'm using the 4x4. But then what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this and I'm going to put it in the memory of the machine. So I have my same exact circle. Now I'm going to go add, bring it back from the memory. There it is, set. Now I have all my little circles, and I can do that and fill up my entire hoop. It's a 6 1/4 by 10. It's a big hoop on the Vesta. I can fill that all in one hooping. I can make all the ones for my shirt. Does that make sense? So I really just need one for now. So I'm going to delete that one I just made. Okay. I'm going to take this one and move it right back to the center. Move, put it back in the center. Pretty cool. Okay. Now, I'm going to add in a little design, a little embroidery design. Now, I told you that pumpkin and that, where is it? The pumpkin, oh, here it is. The pumpkin and the little poinsettia were built in. There's some other designs that are built in. I'm going to go add, and I'm going to come to these big letters. And I know that there's this cute little flower that lives in the big letters, kind of like an accent. I'm going to hit set. Edit in. Now, I could have made this flower just a little bit bigger, I think, but I have a visual clue to see if that kind of is going to work in my button. I'm going to blow it up and I can see, yeah, that looks going to look really good. So now really all I have to do, stitch this. I am going to stitch that outside circle because why? Well, I don't have to trace it with a pencil. The machine's going to do the stitching for me. Pretty neat, right? So basically, that's all I'm going to do. I'm going to make a poinsettia button, and that's going to go with my, oh, I don't know. I'm going to be making buttons all afternoon. You know that. So I hope you had fun. I'm just going to be stitching this out. This is pretty simple to do. Just use regular embroidery thread. Cut it out. You know the drill. Cover the button. Think you're going to want to dig in your drawer for covered buttons, right? I'm going to send it off to George. I hope you had a good time watching me today. I think this is kind of like that potato chip commercial, right? I bet you can't make just one. So have fun. It's a quick, fast, and easy project on the Baby Lock Vesta or whatever embroidery machine that you have. I'm going to send it off to George. Thanks for watching me today, and go out and spruce up your wardrobe.
Thanks, Cathy. Once again, that was a great presentation. Don't forget to click on the link to download Cathy's guide on that incredible project. Now, every once in a while, a machine's introduced to the industry that really offers high performance at a great value, and that's the Baby Lock Vesta. Not only is it a great sewing and quilting machine, but it also is an incredible embroidery machine. The embroidery features include a hoop that's larger than 10 by 6, and it has a wonderful color touchscreen. And look at this beautiful embroidery. Plus it removes the jump stitches, and it even has a special software program that sends your design via Wi-Fi right to the machine. Now, that's not all though. For a sewing machine, it has the automatic fabric sensor that senses fabric from heavy denim to sheer fabric to working with elastic or even a ribbing on a collar like a t-shirt knit. But quilting features, it actually will sew in different directions. We have some designs that are incredible for going down the sashing border. It has an automatic 1/4 inch so you can do your piecing, plus all kinds of wonderful decorative stitches. So as you see, this is an incredible sewing, quilting, and embroidery machine. Now, we have a very special buy on this machine. This machine has a manufacturer suggested list price of $59.99. But right now, it's on sale for $39.99, and we're including free shipping across the country, as well as interest-free financing is available. I want to make a very special offer for those who are watching Sewing Tech Talk with Cathy, and that is with a mystery bonus. Why is it a mystery bonus? Well, I don't have a lot of them, but I want to make sure those who are contacting me, all you have to do is mention Cathy, our Sewing Tech Talk with Cathy, and I have this bonus value that is incredible. So give us a call at 1-800-865-9664 and discover how easy it is to get an incredible sewing, quilting, and embroidery machine. Bye for now.